All right. Thanks so much. Welcome to today's session entitled Reducing Lunchroom Waste, New Guidance on Share Tables and Other Strategies for K through 12. We welcome Julianna Carvi from Bexley City Schools, Jamie Higley from Ohio Department of Health, Cher Mohring, Hamilton County Solid Waste District, and Tim Tewksbary, Ohio Department of Agriculture. Our schools are not only where our children learn academic subjects in the classroom, but also where they absorb norms and expectations of society through their broad array of interactions with students, staff, and their built environment, which includes the lunchroom and the lunchroom staff. Not only can addressing food waste in our K through 12 kitchens and lunchrooms put a big dent in current food waste levels, but it can also set the table for a lifetime of future behaviors from this critical population. Cher Mohring and her colleagues first introduced to me the concept of share tables for K through 12 schools in the past year. I know they've been around for longer than that, but thank you for introducing me to that concept. Their efforts in Hamilton County to develop pilot programs that she'll discuss in detail helped engage with key regulators to provide guidance for others interested in developing similar programs. We'll then hear from Tim and Jamie from, I think actually you guys are going to last, but we'll hear from Tim and Jamie from the Ohio Departments of Agriculture and Health. We'll be able to talk about the guidelines for schools interested in these programs and provide context for these guidelines. Also, we'll hear from Julianna Carvi, Food Services Director for Bexley Schools, who, like many schools, are dipping their toe into the waters of this topic in an attempt to address this pressing topic, but with all the frontline pressures of having to provide nutritious, appetizing meals to lots of hungry students every day, on time, and under budget. Each will share their ongoing work, and then we'll turn to you, the audience, to hear about initiatives or ideas that you've tried or have heard about and would like to share. Plus, we'll have the webinar audience, and we'll be documenting this and recording this so that others, I know a lot of food service directors are very interested in this, but frankly just are very busy being food service directors and couldn't be here on a weekday. So we hope to have that archive for them to be able to use in the future. So with that, I'll bring up Cher Mohring to lead off the session. Thanks, Cher.
All right. Well, good afternoon. I'll talk fast so you can stay awake. So I'm going to be presenting on a food rescue pilot program that we did in Cincinnati, Ohio, Hamilton County. So if any of you have been into a school lunchroom, you've probably seen garbage cans full of perfectly good food. And so when we first started addressing food waste in schools, we really looked a lot at the composting options. And we had some schools start composting programs that were really very successful. But we've run into some challenges with having composting facilities nearby and closing down and things like that. And it was really depressing, but thank goodness it happened because it made us look up that food pyramid, the hierarchy, to something more valuable. And while, you know, our main focus is waste reduction, this is really about feeding hungry people, this presentation. So the first thing we needed to find out is if it was allowed. So we eventually found out through the USDA that they do allow for share tables and donation of food that's not eaten by the students. The reason this is important is because the USDA funds the National School Lunch Program. And at our pilot school, a large percentage of the children participated in that program. But as a county as a whole, a huge amount of kids participate. So we couldn't really implement a program like this without knowing that it was legal. So the next thing we did was we talked to local health departments and talked about what could be donated and what could be shared. And they were comfortable with commercially packaged, unopened food like milk and yogurt and string cheese, whole fruits that haven't been bitten or cut into, and excess food that was not served. They were concerned about keeping the refrigerated items safe, as are we. That is extremely important to us. We don't want anyone to get sick, and the people who would most likely be using this food that the other children aren't eating cannot afford to get sick. So this is extremely important to us. The next thing we did was we found a school that we believed would really want to participate in this pilot, and we met with the right people. And in this picture is Pat Orman. He was our recycling educator of the year last year. We also met with the principal and the cafeteria supervisor at the school, and they were completely on board. But they did have some requests. They didn't want to start with any kind of unserved food, prepared food. They really wanted to just focus on what the kids were throwing away that they were taking in the lunchroom. And the share table part of it was very important to them because the food service director didn't want it to look like the food she was serving wasn't desirable. So that really kind of alleviated her concern that parents would look at this like, well, we're serving food these kids don't want to eat. So on average, 27 items a day were put on a food share table. So basically there's a table and the kids know where this table is. If they don't want something, they can put it on the table. And if another student wants it, they can take it from the table. And on average, 54% of it was eaten by other students. So it isn't that it's not desirable. And as a matter of fact, when I sat there and watched the food share table in action, there are certain students that sit next to that food table and they are constantly getting whiplash looking to see what someone else is putting on it. So it's not that the food isn't desired, it's just that not every kid likes every type of food that's offered. The leftover food is then put into a box that's clearly marked for food donation. The kitchen, it was very comfortable with going ahead and putting that box as long as it was marked well back into their refrigerator on the bottom shelf. So the kitchen never pulls this food back in and puts it in the service. What happens is on Thursdays, they have a very dedicated volunteer at the school, Carol Sowers, and she also volunteers at a local food pantry, and she drives the food from the school to the pantry. And something that's really interesting, so when I say she volunteered at the pantry, she didn't volunteer in the pantry, but she kind of volunteered at the church where everything went. And when we went to kind of take these pictures and observe the program for the first time, she stayed with us as we went into the pantry and to see, how the pantry handles this food that comes in. And as they were taking that box of food back to the refrigerator in the pantry, the people who were shopping in the pantry had pulled all of those food items out of that box before it even made it to the refrigerator. And Carol Sowers was moved beyond, words on. She had no idea how much this food was really desired. And this is stuff that they don't, they get a lot of canned food and dry food, and they get a lot of cakes and breads, but they don't get a lot of milks and yogurts and fresh fruits and things like that. And it was fantastic. It's not that this is stuff that people don't want. It's just that it's not getting to the right people. So, there were a lot of great benefits to doing something like this. We figured in a year, 5,500 items were rescued, shared, or donated by feeding hungry people, and it reduced the waste from going to the landfill. But I got to tell you, the number one benefit is teaching 425 kids that food is an important resource and it should not be wasted. So, and I just want to say that this is my contact information, and I'm happy to talk to anyone about this. I can only work with schools in Hamilton County, but there is a organization called Green Umbrella in the tri-state region around Hamilton County that is willing to work with 10 different counties within Southwest Ohio, Southeast Indiana, and Northwest Kentucky. And those are those counties and the person you can contact if you would like assistance in that area. That's it.
Questions? You want to take questions? Just any immediate questions that you might have to.
Sure.
I have a question.
Sure.
The kids verbalize to you, thank you for making this available to us, we really need it, or we're hungry or thirsty. I mean, how did you sense, other than seeing young people, how did you sense the kids value food? That's all it's wasteful.
I sat there and watched the kids that were sitting next to that table wanting that food. Now, this is a school that is not at the highest needs. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, they have high needs in this school, but there are other schools that have many more students who are food insecure than this school. And I would think that it's likely that those schools would be even more, like more of the food would even stay within the school. This was a pilot we did. We are expanding it to other schools, so we're hoping to get more data. I will say that, you know, a lot of schools I am finding were already doing something very similar, but they were kind of afraid that it wasn't allowed because they've heard, you know, that the USDA wouldn't allow it, or which is not true. You know, there's just a lot of misinformation out there. And really, I think in trying to get schools on board with this, working with your local health department to ensure that their safety is really a way to get them on board with doing something like this, and it really does benefit the students. Yes.
Every presentation I found it really helpful. I'm curious if you had any kind of education or presentations that you rolled out with this for the students?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, the question is there any kind of education that we rolled out for the students with this? And we are actually working on education programs right now for students, and working with a district that's doing this district-wide to kind of see what kind of needs they have. But our education specialist has developed a classroom program and an assembly related to food waste prevention for schools, as well as adult programs as well. So this was kind of a pilot to get our feet wet and try to figure out how to promote it to other schools. But I think the education part of it is really important too, long term. Yes.
Are any of your schools enrolled in EREF scrap program or the USDA Food Waste Challenge, UPA Food Waste Challenge? Are they reporting waste to those agencies? Are they reporting waste to the solid waste district? And well, do they have the scales that they're using and everything? I know you had numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use a conversion chart? How are you reporting waste?
So with the question was, how are we basically measuring the waste reduction side of it? So with the pilot school, we basically went by items, how many items were set there. We haven't done weights. There is a organization based out of Indiana that is that has a calculator, and if you come to me later, I can probably tell you the name of it, but it's like foodrescue.org, something like that. But they have a calculator where a school can input the amount of items, and they kind of generalize about how much that would be, and they relate that to how much greenhouse gas is alleviated by doing something like that. But I think that's something very important that we'll be looking at in the future is better measurements other than just items. It's kind of hard to measure it in some ways, though, because a lot of it's packaging. I mean, this is all prepackaged food that we're taking for the most part. So.
ERAP and SCRAP, right?
I'm not.
School cafeteria assessment program. And I have some schools that are doing this, and I got the scales they recommended, and the program's working really well. You know, we're measuring and weighing everything, but then there are other schools that say the things don't last on their sharing table long enough to have somebody come up and weigh. And that's why I thought if there are a conversion method out there, you know, to help with that.
Yeah, that's a problem to have, though.
Other schools, and I learned the same thing you did. Lots of other schools are already doing this. They have sharing tables, and it's going right now.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to measure when it's going that fast. That's wonderful. It is wonderful, but you know, that if you want to report it and maybe use it for leverage for grant funding or even recognition of some sort, you know, like there needs to be some kind of conversion chart out there. Yeah.
Great. So for the people who you're recording this for, she had mentioned the school cafeteria assessment program, something to look into as far as measurement. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry. I wondered if you had a community center that serves free summer lunches to their kids. Tried this program, and they said that they had an obstacle with the kids feeling like they were being shunned because kids were kind of making fun of them, like, oh, you need free food. I was wondering if you had anything like that and how you would overcome that.
I did go to a summer feeding program that also had a share table aspect to it. And I didn't notice a lot of the students going up to it the day that I visited, but most of the students that came to that program were coming from like a subsidized daycare center. But it wasn't advertised well in the community to, you know, like I think have the kids that were really in need get there. And plus transportation is a barrier with those summer programs, feeding programs, because they don't have the school buses automatically taking the kids there. So most of the kids there were actually from daycare centers that bus them there. And I think maybe they got fed breakfast and things like that as well. So. But yeah, they were collecting it, and they were trying to.
Also, I wondered about, you said that yogurt and things like that were put on the table. Did you talk to the kids about, you know?
So no, so they put the food, the refrigerated items can be on the share table for up to 2 hours before it needs to go back into refrigeration. And we are encouraging schools to actually have coolers with ice packs to put the food in, and that any food that's left out for more than 2 hours, which is even a little bit more stringent than some of the newer guidelines came out. But we really feel like it's important to give them stringent guidelines, because particularly if they're going to donate it afterwards, there's going to be a time period that's out of refrigeration while it's being moved to a food pantry. I have not heard of that being a problem. I mean, I don't think they normally let the students take the food out of the lunchroom with them. Yeah, I don't work in the schools. I work for the Recycling and Solid Waste District, so I don't necessarily see that, but I have never heard that's a problem.
What did they do to address allergies? Students potentially not
That's,
realizing that there was allergen in there.
addressing allergies is proving to be a concern with schools when working with them on these share tables, particularly the youngest of the students. One school, what they do is they have the share table right next to the cashier, and the cashier has every student name pops up when they check them out, and it says whether or not they have food allergies. So they kind of keep an eye on that share table, and if a student leaves the cash register and tries to take something from the share table, you know, they watch out for that. Also, the youngest of the students are the ones who typically don't know what their allergies are, and there's, you know, cafeteria monitors that are really there to kind of monitor what these kids are eating and making sure that they're not consuming things they really shouldn't do.
All right, thanks, Cher.
My pleasure.
how do I find my presentation? Oh, there I am. Okay. And so, hi, I am representing school food service director here, or lunch lady, or I'll wear the badge proudly. I'm at Bexley City Schools, which is its own district within the city of Columbus. There are 3 cities within this bigger city, and we kind of stand alone. So, gosh, I'm short. This is bad. Can I grab one of these instead? Does this work? Okay, great. So right here, this is child nutrition. These are my guiding principles, and that food isn't nutrition until it gets into a child's mouth. So we try really hard to get the food into the children's mouths. Hungry children can't learn. The service to, I feel like my role is to provide service to our parents and to our students. And that's part of I work in public life and public service. So all of these things lead to how do we get, how do I do my job the best way possible? And reducing waste is a way for me to do my job the best way possible and to serve our students. So we look at overproduction, at excessive trim, at spoiled items, and at expired items. And we have, going into each one of these things, we use good data to order our food. We have the luxury, unlike some restaurants, we know who's coming in to eat. We take lunch counts in the morning, and we put in processes that are dynamic, where if we think we're gonna have 50 kids and then it winds up being 75, we have the capacity built into our schedules to serve those kids on a daily and to change up daily. Oh my goodness. Getting the students counts. Yeah, those are the dynamic parts of overproduction. And then on here also, we do have share tables. Share tables, I don't take the measures like you do, but we do check them out daily, and what's ever left there at the end of the day tends to the kindergarten teachers kind of swoop in, and they have them for snacks for the kids who are hungry in the afternoon in their classrooms. And sometimes maybe it's like 2 or 3 apples or a carton of milk, but the share tables are always empty at the end of our service time. And yeah, and having food that can carry over, again, that's part of production, and making smart choices about how we operate within the kitchen. If we lay out, say, pizzas that we don't bake off until we know that the kids are going to be there to eat them, we can carry them over till the next day and impact our dynamic food preparation. But excessive trim, that is where things would wind up in the trash and going into recycling and going into composting. And what I try to do is good and continuous training with the people who work in the kitchens about not being excessive with their trim. And what we do with our trim is we have chicken farmer teachers who take 20 to 25 gallons of food waste every day out of our kitchens. And I don't know how to pilot that program, but I would tell every school, if you have chicken farmer teachers, give them 5-gallon buckets. They take them home at the end of the day and bring them back at the beginning of the day. And as we produce, we just drop the trash into those containers. And it's been wonderful. There's no cost to anybody, and the benefit to the chickens and the farmers, it's pretty nice. Spoiled items and expired items, just-in-time ordering. Again, we don't order more than what we need, and with the advent of computer processing and able to get in order on Monday, receive it on Wednesday, things that used to be a bigger problem with dates, like too much milk or too much yogurt that would sit and not be moved out in a timely way, without really talking about the problem with dates on food. But being able to be timely is helpful with that. We also use the checking of dates, and again, that's part of good training and having the people and being resourced to have the people and the time to check these things. And again, HACCP is that hazard analysis and control and critical control points. We are mandated by the USDA and to make sure that we are following HACCP, which is everywhere food's time and temperature can be impacted, like upon delivery or as we're processing it, that we know what its temperature is and where something bad might happen. So we are constantly cognizant of when food might be spoiling. And again, that leads to the first in, first out. That makes common sense. You use what is oldest first, and that takes good and continuous training. So I have the luxury of having really great staff and the support of my district to do a lot of professional development with my staff. And they support me in my craziness as I walk around and look at the ends of the peppers and how much onion they're throwing away. Or maybe they don't support me, but they do it anyway. So some of my specific areas where we can improve is donating edible food to people who can use it. That's been a challenge. We've looked at it a couple different ways to find a volunteer who will take it to the local food bank or someplace in the community where they will eat the food. To explore some partnerships. We need to produce we still have some overproduction, and then tightening our processes is how I see schools can impact their food waste. Like getting edible food out to people who can consume it while it is still good. And I've worked with the Department of Health. It's Columbus. We're under Franklin County, and I know the rules, and I know we can do it. It's just a matter of getting it done. Some other non-food waste reduction measures that we've done: we recycle everything we can, from cardboard to cans. We've moved to washable trays for more of our grades in the schools, so they're using reusable washable trays. We have used utensil dispensers as opposed to individually wrapped utensils, which takes, wherever we can take away packaging, we try to take it away. And some of the barriers that we have to, and I think other schools will have these same barriers, you need commitment from everybody in the kitchen and above that this is an important place to focus your time and your money. That we have resources. Again, it's time to care. Sometimes you're so busy, it is, and you're so overtaxed, it's hard to really care about what are you going to do with that half a pan of lasagna. We'll just throw it away. And then the risk of exposure. And that is honestly probably the biggest problem is when we have done a waste audit about 3 years ago, but to go in there and really look at what is being wasted. People feel very guarded about that. I think we talked about that earlier today, like with breweries that don't want to tell you how much hops waste they're throwing away. And it's so there's a sense of exposure, and it is not worth the risk to let people know that you are wasting their taxpayer money or perceived wasting. So that is my presentation. Again, I'm here all about the schools. And what?
I would break it down like 2 or 3 questions. What do you mean by offering versus serving? You're an offering school. I'm from Solid Waste District. Our education specialist isn't here today, so I want to try to understand that.
Okay, that's actually a technical term. Oh, what does offer versus serve in a school food service setting mean? It's a technical term used by the USDA and school nutrition authorities, and how we present the food to the children. And we can either offer a variety of options, or we can set a set plate, and on that plate is everything that is required by the USDA to be served to a child for a reimbursable meal. And to offer, it gives the kids the opportunity to not take things that they won't eat, but it's also, it's a higher price to deal with. It takes a more dynamic interchange with the kids. It also takes having a variety of choices as opposed to, say, 150 peach cups, and peach is your fruit, it's your only fruit, take it or throw it away. So when you can have the luxury of having peaches, apples, pears, applesauce, all of these things that could be a fruit component, and say to a child, pick a fruit, any fruit, they're going to take the fruit that they like the best. And they're less inclined to throw it away. So if you can offer, and most school districts offer to middle school and high school because it's easier, and they serve to elementary school because they're just trying to slam the food out to the kids as quickly as they possibly can. And having a kid like, oh, I don't know if, little older kids are more decisive, younger kids are not. So to implement offering across all grades, we have done the last couple of years, and it can it can be tedious, but it's also it saves us from throwing away a lot of food that I think we would have lost otherwise.
Because I'm not as familiar with this. In general, do schools receive their food in like these disposable, what do you call them, disposable things, like a catering serves these big pans that come in and then you're scooping? Is that how that comes in?
The question is, how does the food arrive to schools? And the answer is, like, for every school building you see, there might be a different way how they receive and serve their students. Some schools don't have kitchens. Some schools have full kitchens with knives and cutting boards. Some schools get their cheese already grated in 1 ounce containers, and some schools get blocks of cheese that they grate themselves. So it really depends on what the school has in place, what kind of facilities, what kind of training they have for their staff, and how they choose to approach it. So you're welcome. Yeah.
How long your lunch periods are, and I'm also curious if you and if the food service department has any authority in determining the length of the lunch period.
Okay. Don't have any authority. Okay, what the question is, how long are the lunch periods, and does the food service department have any authority in determining lunch period time? Oh my gosh, the school people, the education, Department of Education determines the minimum amount for a child's lunchtime, and it's 20 minutes in the state of Ohio. My different elementaries do 20-minute lunches. A kid, if you think about how you eat lunch, I mean, I think they need more time with their plates, but at the same time, most people will scarf down a plate of food in 15 minutes or less. If giving a 20-minute lunch period means that the kid has been playing for 40 minutes beforehand out on the playground getting good and hungry and sweaty, I would rather have them come to the table hungry and have lunch after recess, because they will eat the food, and it's better for them all the way around. Sure.
My kids are in Worthington schools, and we've been pushing the district to make the lunch period longer, and also to arrange it so that the kids are outside first. Because with a lot of the younger grades, they actually had them inside eating first, and like a kindergartner, first grader, second grader is not going to eat their food if they know that they can go out to recess as soon as they're done. And so they waste a lot of food. And the amount of my kids complain that they just said 20 minutes is not enough time for my child to eat all the food in her lunch box. And I feel like there'd be a lot less school waste? How do you go about pushing a district to make changes like that?
What you're coming up against literally is what they are paying the people who are in the building supervising children. And if there's 180 minutes of instruction or 180 days of school, and what you're coming up against teacher contracts and union contracts, and what the cost of paying people to be in your buildings looking at the children. So that's where the money starts speaking, and that's where the problem lies. You know, it's not, and best practices show that lunch after recess is better. Like, you can find the studies to support that, but the reality of it is you need the people with the eyeballs on the kids, and that's a resource that is tight and always getting tighter. Okay, good, good, all right. Well, next.
Thank you. Jamie Higley, Ohio Department of Health. So Ohio Department of Health, we first got involved with this issue probably a little over a year ago. We started getting a lot of questions from schools about food waste and what can be done about it within the confines of our food code. The biggest issue was that under the Ohio Uniform Food Safety Code, food that has been served and in the possession of a consumer may not be reserved by that facility. Except for, there are some exceptions, except for foods that are commercially prepackaged and have not been opened and do not require temperature control. So in other words, dairy products, milks, cups of yogurt, and things like that may not be taken back into the kitchen and then reserved or resold, because there's issues with food safety, contamination, even intentional contamination. So, and Department of Health, Department of Agriculture, our number one job is protect public health. So food safety is a big concern for us. So we started looking at the issue. We had the Hamilton County Solid Waste District came in and talked to us, I think it was last year or earlier this year, and talked to us about the pilot project that they were doing. And they had a lot of really good things there. So then Department of Health, we started working with the School Nutrition Association on share tables and how they could be operated within the food code. And so, as I said, the main issue is just making sure food safety guidelines are followed and making sure that the facility complies with the food code. So, because all of the facilities, all the school kitchens, they're inspected by the local health departments. And so we collaborated with Department of Agriculture, and we decided to release that guidance document that's up on that you can see on the screen now. And so it provides some guidelines and some standards that if a facility wants to operate a share table, this is how it should be operated. So, this did also went through, we have a Retail Food Safety Advisory Council that is made up of the food industry, local health districts, and general consumer. And we presented this guidance document at the council meeting for their input. And then we also had some members of the School Nutrition Association that were at that meeting and provided some input as well. And so we issued this guidance document, and we've gotten some good responses from it. You know, a lot of schools are now operating share tables using this guidance. So, as I said, the main thing is making sure that the food safety, the integrity of the food is maintained, and the food is not going back to within the kitchen to be reserved or resold. The food may be donated if the standards are followed and the integrity of the food is maintained. I I think the issue with donations, though, is what you'll find is a lot of charities, food banks, there's a lot of foods they won't accept, just because they may question if the food's been held at the proper temperature and things like that. So, but as part of the guidelines, we do recommend that if it's a dairy product or food that requires temperature control, the food should be maintained in facilities that hold the temperature at 41 or less. If that is not possible, they can use what's called time as a public health control, where they monitor the time, because that's one of the main things is making sure that the share table is monitored by someone, because in essence the share table is operated outside of the scope of the food license, the licensed kitchen. So there should be some school staff that's there to monitor the share table. And so if it's not possible to hold the foods at 41 or less, they should monitor the time that the food has sat on the table. And if it's beyond, I think it says 3 hours, the food should be discarded and not donated or reserved or anything. So, and then also making sure that the foods placed on the table are in an intact package, and that package has not been tampered with or torn or opened or punctured or anything like that. So, does anybody have any questions?
Could you, when it says monitored, does it have to be by trained staff? Could it be by trained volunteers? I know some schools will be really tight for staff, and maybe volunteer opportunities. Is there a prevailing standard there?
Sure. The question was, could the share table be monitored by trained volunteers, or should they be trained? Yeah, they should have some type of training on what to look for, and I think under some of the school USDA programs, they might offer some type of training like that, or the school could offer training. And based on my discussions with the School Nutrition Association, a majority of the schools were going to have their lunch cafeteria monitors monitor the share tables. So, but they should have some type of training, I would think, just to make so they know what to look for. And it would be just making sure that foods are held at the proper temperature and inspecting the packages to make sure that they haven't been torn or opened, or punctured or intentionally contaminated or something like that. So, yes.
And I guess I was a little surprised about the 3 hours hold on the food, especially I'm thinking a small carton of milk or yogurt that will warm up very quickly. This is a very small container. 3 hours is beyond my safety knowledge of what would be considered safe. I'm curious about 3 hours.
Well, in our food code, we have rules for time as public health control, and it actually specifies up to 4 hours. And so, in discussions with the School Nutrition Association, they were wanting 2 hours. We wanted 2 hours, and the School Nutrition Association wanted the 4 hours. And so the 3 hours was kind of a compromise. But a school could certainly take it upon themselves to set their own standards. If they wanted to go with 2 hours, they certainly could.
For the Dairy Association here in Ohio, I know we did milk temperature studies of acceptability of how kids would not eat or drink something because it was too warm, and clearly 2 hours they would not drink it because it was too warm. I don't know if there was any follow-up in regards to looking at consumption, even though it might be in the guidelines?
No, we didn't look at consumption. Our main concern is food safety. So, we understand that there's quality standards, that, some foods won't, some kids won't consume foods that, may not be cold. but our main concern was food safety. Any other questions?
No, I just want to say, with time, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but with using time as food safety, Get louder. Is that better?
Oh, you're good.
Okay. Using time as a food safety, as the bacteria multiply, the first 2 hours, it's a little, but the 4 hours, the threshold where it's like, now you're into dangerous pathogens in the food that you have. So that's a lot of the time, that's how I understand time being the control factor. So yeah, the milk might not be desirable, but nobody's going to die from drinking warm milk that's been sitting for 3 hours. And again, that's what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say, if you want to leave Jamie's PDF up there, you can. Yeah, that's fine. There's no worries on that. Well, my name's Tim Tewksbary. I'm with the High Department of Agriculture, Division of Food Safety. And some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about real briefly is some similar to with Jamie, because the letter of guidance that went out to all the local boards of health around the entire state of Ohio came from both agencies. So we both kind of collaborated to make sure that document went out so everybody's kind of on the same page. So when it comes to, in the state of Ohio, kind of a little bit of a background is that the State Department of Health and the State Department of Agriculture are the two oversight agencies for all the boards of health in the entire state. The Uniform Food Safety Code is adopted by the state of Ohio and then is administered by the local health departments with guidance from both the state agencies. So when they have questions or if things are outside the scope of the food code, that is when guidance like this comes out. And when this all was kind of coming about, all the school, like the share tables and everything came to both agencies, trying to figure a way to actually make the way of the Uniform Food Safety Code, if it not worked the way it's written, try to find guidance to make it so it's still a doable activity. Because like what Jamie said is 100% true, is that the way the regulations written that all the boards of health in the entire state use is that once you serve it, it's been served. So you can't take it back. And so trying to find a way to go around that to make it still acceptable, that the foods don't have to be thrown away, and then still make the food safety aspect of it was the most important part of it. And so that's kind of how those guidelines all came about. The times, temperatures, the recommendation of like the refrigeration, the coolers or ice baths, all that kind of stuff was all purely based on food safety. When it comes to like the packages of crackers and it comes to like granola bars or whatever else might actually make it to those share tables, that wasn't the huge concern because they're just prepackaged stuff. And as long as the package is intact, there's no food safety concern. So really a lot of this was kind of based on those refrigerated items, because a lot of milk probably does get thrown away. A lot of the yogurts do get thrown away, either maybe based on time, they don't have enough time to eat it while they're in the lunch, or they don't like it. And it automatically, elementary schools especially, you're right, they automatically get served a tray if they want it or not. So if they don't want milk, what's going to happen to it? It's going to get thrown away. And so coming up with guidelines like this I think we're really important, trying to develop standards or ideas so that some of the waste can be taken away. When it comes to this document right here, if anybody wants this document, when we're done, or we can find a way to do it, I'm not sure if it's on the websites right now or not, get in touch with me or get in touch with Jamie, and we can get that PDF out to you if you don't already have it, or find a way to get it mass distributed somehow so that it is available. And if it's not on the website, we'll make sure it's on the website. Is it? Awesome. And so it's on the website, so you can kind of get a hold of that. So for guidance lines. Now I've heard multiple people say already kind of mention some of the quote unquote expiration dates when it comes to foods and things like that. And I'll be honest, I have not inspected a school cafeteria in probably 10 years, because I came from a local health department where I did all those food service or the restaurants and the school cafeterias and all that stuff. But I've been with the Department of Agriculture for 10 years, and we mainly focus on the grocery stores, the food manufacturing side of it, distribution and things like that. So I don't get to go into the school kitchens anymore. And so when it comes to the expiration dates, I remember when I was doing inspections at one time, once those dates hit, a lot of those foods were just thrown away. Well, when it comes, and it's a really common misconception for a lot of prepackaged manufactured foods, is those dates are purely quality. And so probably 9 times out of 10, when you look at one of those packages of crackers, cookies, or whatever, that date is just a quality date. So there's nothing wrong with giving that or not trashing it or donating it or whatever, because that date just means, say it's like a package of Cheerios in a little container of cereal. All that date means is that company will guarantee that it tastes like a Cheerio up until that date. After that date, it might not taste exactly how they like it, but when it comes to nutrition wise and food quality wise, it's still there. And so that's kind of a misconception as well. And the same goes for yogurts and milks and things like that. Those are just quality dates. And so as long as it's going to go way bad, like for example, for milk, it's going to sour, it's going to kind of do everything that it does way before it ever gets enough bacteria in it to actually hurt somebody. So those dates are just quality. So it's kind of most people don't want to sell it because, again, they're selling food. They don't want to sell it past the expiration date. But when it comes to like the donations and share tables and things like that, those are still items that can get thrown to those tables instead of just discarded. So I always like to kind of point that out. We get calls pretty much every single day at our department when it comes to these lovely dates of like, hey, this grocery store is selling expired whatever on their shelf. Go yell at them. Boy, we basically said, well, it's actually used a quality date, so it's technically fine. And so kind of get that misconception out there also that those dates on those pre-manufactured, commercially made things, those dates are just purely just for taste and things like that. When it comes to food safety, it's not so much. So that's a kind of a misconception, I guess, for a lot of the general public. So, but that is really all I had because I knew that we were going to talk about the guidance document. So do we have any questions? See, that was an easy one. See, look at that. See, the end of it, and it's all over.
Well, thanks, Tim. But for the rest of the time, we also want to share if people in the audience have ideas or concepts that they've implemented in their own settings or seen implemented, or we could also ask more questions of the group overall. So are there people in the audience who'd like to share their own experiences or ideas or their harebrained ideas that they'd like feedback on? Please.
I'll just share something. So last year I came to this conference, which is why I'm here again this year. It's a great conference. And I got all the scoop on the food waste prevention in the cafeterias. So immediately I went back when the school started. I got, a school who is just a premier recycler in our county, got them on board with this. I went to the ERAF side. I talked to the ERAF people. I got the kind of scale we needed. I got everything in place. And then it was like, okay, how do we introduce it to the school? And what I found, and I'm really curious about the educational program that you're developing. I really hope you share that with me. But what I did to kick all this off is just wrote a script for a training video to get everybody trained on how to participate in the program. And I have to tell you, this is an elementary school, and it ranges from K through 4. And so far, we only have grades 3 and 4 on there. I mean, this is still being developed and expanded, and we hope to expand to, grade 2 and then eventually kindergarten. But there are challenges. But coming up with a training skit that the kids performed, and then they performed it live, and then they made a videotape of it that they used to remind everybody about the program, and they played on the morning announcements and kicked it off on America Recycles Day last year. So, but again, you said you have to choose the right school. Yeah, that's key. You got to find that one school that is just willing to do everything and always trying to expand their solid waste management program to include more, and then let them take the ball and run with it. And it's just been very rewarding for the kids, for the families of the kids, for the 2 local food pantries in the area. It's just been a great benefit to everybody, and I hope I can get more schools on board, maybe schools that aren't doing as much but would like to, hopefully. But anyway, just sharing that with you. And yeah, very curious about your
educational program that's in development, I think you said, right? Somebody said that.
Yeah, our education specialist is the person who's actually putting those together. And those are really kind of directed towards students and talking about wasted food, and why it's important not to waste healthy, good food. As far as the kicking off of a program, with the pilot program, the principal was very hands-on in the lunchroom, and he played a huge role in encouraging the students, if they don't want something, put it on the table. And if someone else wants it, they're more than welcome to have it, and even kind of sells the items. Does anyone want some milk? We have some milk, and that's kind of what started it off. And he engaged with the students a lot. There's cafeteria monitors. I think you need to have a champion at each school to really do something like this.
Exactly. I agree. Thanks.
Cher, while you're at the microphone, I was really curious. Could you walk us through a bit? I think there's a lot of great initiatives I've seen put forth that ran into exactly the issue you did. There's a regulatory issue, and you guys have your plates full at both the departments. I'm sure your schedules are crazy as it is, but how did you bridge the conflicting regulatory or the just kind of bringing these folks together to help put out the guidelines so that this could be activated for more schools?
So I worked really closely with our local health departments. We have 4 within Hamilton County. One of them handles most of Hamilton County, and then we have 3 cities that have their own health departments. And we really worked closely with them on what they felt was safe. The opinion of most of them was that the free food, once it leaves the serving line, really isn't regulated, but we all want to make sure this food's safe. And I think that needs to be the number one priority, is to make sure it's safe. You're not letting it sit out too long. You don't want to make anyone sick. And that's what's going to be really important to these schools too, is to make sure that you give them guidance that makes them feel comfortable doing this program. There was some concern with the regulation that it could not be reserved. Is this considered reserving? If it's not going back into the cafeteria line, if it's just sitting on, outside of the cafeteria line and no one's making any money on it. And that's where the guidance from the Ohio Department of Health and Ohio Department of Agriculture just came out with. That is just fantastic. And we are so appreciative that you took that step, because it really made that last local health department feel comfortable saying, okay, we feel comfortable saying this is okay to do.
And Tim and Jamie, maybe chime in here. What is a great what's the best pathway or most effective pathway for folks who are struggling to reconcile local with state, or regulations that might straddle your agencies? Should we start with one agency or the other, or do it simultaneously reaching out? What's the best pathway here?
Well, like Sherry said, I think the first step is working with the local health department. They're the ones that have the authority to conduct the inspections and make sure that the facilities comply with the food code. And both agencies, we're certainly happy to answer any questions that you have. But I think the local health department should be the first contact, as they're the ones that inspect the facilities to make sure they comply with the food code.
And then if some of the, I'm not sure that's one, but if some of the ideas may say that they're outside the realm of the food code, say that they're outside the realm, but there's no food safety concern, there's no things, how do you get that next step? Then that's kind of when the state agencies kind of get involved to a point. And like Jamie mentioned in his part of his little talk, was we do have a retail advisory council, which is pretty much kind of meets a random amount of times throughout the year. And what that council does is it does have public, I guess, questions or comments or those type of sections to those meetings. And then when, like with the Cher table and some other ones, those are big meetings where there's a lot of school food service directors that made it to the Department of Agriculture's campus. And then when it came to public opinion or public comment section, we were able to hear a lot of those comments from those other, like the food service side of it, like the school cafeterias, to see their concerns, their issues, what they were thinking. And then what does it kind of gives us an idea. And then that gives us the forefront to try to make something happen if it is possible. Sometimes when things go to those types of meetings, there's nothing we can do. And then in this case, there was. And so that is another round to go, that if it does go outside the scope of like the state administrative rules, which what all the health departments are governed by, then the next step is to go to the 2 state agencies either independently or come to one of those meetings that we have throughout the year and have a public comment.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. I know there's a lot of story, and even on some of the people are trying to think about using certain types of food, like the fly example, if that can be sold as a food, as a feed additive, and there's just a lot of regulatory hurdles I think I've heard jumping up. So it's great to see pathways in for folks to get those addressed. A couple questions from the webinar. Thank you for those of you listening on the webinar. Question 1, are schools considered nonprofits, thus enabling the food to ultimately be donated back to students rather than to a pantry? Whoa, everybody's anxious to answer this one.
The school food service departments have their own funding, and they are separate from the general revenue funds for public schools. So the money I spend and the money I earn, it's supposed to be flat. It's not supposed to be for profit, but it is called a nonprofit school food service account. And so what was
So does that nonprofit status allow you maybe some more flexibility in terms of donation back to students? Are donations regulated differently because of a nonprofit status rather than a for-profit status?
Well, schools are, well, my purview, public schools are nonprofit, and I don't know.
Sure.
That's a fantastic question that we are working to try to answer, actually, because some schools in other states have set up according to the Ohio Department of Agriculture, any of the food left over, regulations has to be, if it's donated beyond the share table, it has to go to a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So some schools in other states have talked about setting up like a food pantry in the school, setting up their own separate nonprofit. I know one of our major school districts in Hamilton County is currently looking into whether or not they can be considered that, to be able to just donate it directly back to the families that go to the schools. They're waiting on an answer on that. And that would be fantastic, particularly for some schools that have a really high percentage of poverty, kids that are food insecure. The idea would be to have like a discrete food pantry, and that perhaps a counselor would run it or something like that, someone who knows who is in need. And we would love to have that answer. That is a fantastic question that I've been asking and asking. We're trying to find out.
Gotcha. Tim or Jamie, any thoughts on that?
Really, the regulation has to go to a nonprofit. So, but basically, that's what I'm told. But when it comes to, there's a couple of school districts down where in my area where I live, what they have done is they've set up a connection with like a local church that's basically right across the street from the school. And so that's where all of their donations go, is to that church across the street. So it's almost on the same grounds. They even share a road that takes back to the school and to the church. So that particular school district found a very quick connection to get that to go to a nonprofit and still hit basically the students, because it's right there. So
okay. That was from Robin from Cincinnati. She had another great question here. Any possibility that the unused food could be repurposed into a different food item, i.e. converted into a soup or made into an ice cream, either on the school campus or by another separate entity, like a business?
I don't think that would fall within the food code, because that would still be considered reserving.
So just to clarify, so probably that would not be allowed under current regulation and code?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, unused. The question was just unused food. So, so your designation, if it had been served, no, but if it had been unserved, it could be converted. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, like leftover broccoli becomes broccoli soup today.
Okay.
Later, if it's not been served on a plate, and we've controlled all the time and temperature. And, yeah.
Yes, correct. I was referring to
Okay.
served food.
Gotcha. So the magic line is at the served. Okay, awesome. Other questions here, Michaela?
Yeah, can you guys just comment a little bit more on hot food that hasn't been served? Thank you. Can you comment a little bit on hot food that hasn't been served? Is there any progress in how to try and divert that waste? Obviously, it sometimes can be reused, but if it can't be reused at the in the lunchroom to make more food, is there any future of it being donated or either to students or to the general community at all?
When I was talking about the area of growth for us, that's specifically the food I was referring to, that we make it but don't get in front of people, that we've made it but we haven't served it yet. And that's a struggle. There are programs out there. I know there are some university programs out there. I've looked at websites. I've looked to see if there was partnerships. And I think that's an area of growth for food waste, to find ways to get prepared food out of, out of schools and into maybe a pantry or a soup kitchen, that kind of place. But it's doable. It's all about controlling the times, the temperatures, making sure that the food is safe. It's donatable, apparently, to non-for-profits, but the manpower behind it and the owning up to having created all this excessive food, those are the sticking points.
David, come back to Ronnie then.
Hi, David Andre Gozero, Econopia, do food waste collection services. Totally interested to talk to anybody about that who might want to. Given that we're talking about reduction, I'm interested in ideas that you might have on ways that, a service provider like myself, helping to collect for composting food waste. Is there anything that we can be doing to help you all, in the kitchens at the county level, state or otherwise?
So in Hamilton County, I think a barrier, schools are typically cash strapped, and to be able to afford to pay an extra fee to have the compostables hauled away, unfortunately, is a barrier. Although we do have schools doing it, as I know you work with them, and it's cost prohibitive for some of the other schools. Unfortunately, in our area, the tipping fees are pretty low for garbage right now. So.
Ronnie, and then Glennon had a question. Comes a microphone.
Thanks. So it's inspiring to hear the kinds of initiatives that are going on due to having champions and people that are really energized about the issue. And I'm wondering about the schools that don't necessarily have a champion. And if you have thoughts about what's like a feasible sort of baseline level of program to address wasted food that you might suggest in a school where nobody has the bandwidth to take that initiative.
All right. Do you mean for like a share table food donation?
Share table or any of the other types of initiatives that
I'm a real fan of having a champion in a school and working with the living. It's unfortunate, but we only have the staff to do something like that. We can't be in the schools to be the champion there 24/7. I think trying to find someone in the PTA might be beneficial to find that champion. But I think really we haven't talked a lot about food waste reduction and just getting the kids to eat the food, and the whole recess before lunch and their offer versus serve are easy. They're not necessarily always easy, but once they're implemented, they just kind of become part of it and get the kids to eat more of their food, and be more hungry. And, and when kids are going to lunch sometimes at 10:30, it's hard to get them to be motivated to eat something that they just don't love. Do you have more to say about that?
The other piece to that, where I think where we could do better, or where I'm in my head going, where can I impact this issue, is to talk to other food service directors, because this is kind of new. And we do talk amongst ourselves. There are there are organizations like the School Nutrition Association you were working with, which is a national organization. And there are, so in my head, I'm thinking, if I got in front of some of the other food service directors about what it is we could do to impact this. And I really think it's about best practices and how you can impact your bottom line. And if it's less overproduction, and that really does have a dollar that can drive best practices. And that's where I think this needs to go next, to get into the schools, is get in front of the food service directors.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Much ballyhoo is made about the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act and changes in school menus. Did you see a waste stream impact of that conversion? Okay,
well, unlike a lot of people, I'm a big fan of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2000. I think it was 2011. That's, if you're not familiar, that's where a lot of the more things got put on the plates for kids. So they had to take a fruit and a vegetable as opposed to just one or the other. Or they were offered a fruit and a vegetable. So yes, there was a whole lot of waste that went along with that, but we have moved further and further away from that. And it's this whole idea to get in front of K-12 kids as they grow up and they make better choices and they have better food available to them. How they interact with food changes. So I have kids now who have never expected a cookie on their plate, who've never expected French fries at school or soda at school, and they are perfectly happy with. Maybe they would love it more if they've got the sugar and they got the junk. But truth be told, it was really hard when we first implemented it. And the biggest hardship with that was actually the manufacturers did not want to make whole grain food that was easy for food service directors to buy and have available to the kids. But once they got on board, like, here's the law, and if you make it, we will buy it and we will provide it to the children. It was hard, and it was stressful for food service directors because kids really poo-pooed it, and finding the food was hard. But now it is a lot more champions for the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act.
So mainly a transitional pain rather than a long-term. Mm-hmm. That's interesting to see. Glennon, you had a question.
Yeah, my question is very similar to Robbie. So I'm interested in thinking about,
I think we can all agree that, transitioning our lunchrooms to be zero waste is a good idea. And we can agree that these shared tables are a good idea. But, if being zero waste is cost prohibitive for a lot of schools, who at a higher level is thinking about this and thinking about ways to make this easier? And why isn't the Department of Education here also? And why, it's great to have the Department of Health and the Department of Agriculture, but do you guys ever talk to the Department of Education about this? And what are those conversations like?
Yeah.
So that's my question.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't mean to be critical. But
We've collaborated with ODE on some issues. I'm not sure if we specific to share tables, but we have on a number of issues. For example, labeling in schools. We worked on that issue in 2016. So we're happy to work with any agency that needs to be involved, or any group that needs to be involved.
Question here.
I guess my question is, I think a lot of it has to do with kids at home might treat food differently. They might be eating different types of food, and also they might be not being taught kind of responsible use of that food as far as waste goes. How much are you working with the parents of those students to kind of help so that when they go home, it's not a totally different thing than what's happening in the schools?
So Hamilton County Recycling and Solid Waste District, where I work for, we are actually working hard to get into families and really talk to families about how to reduce their food waste. In 2018, it is going to be one of our priorities, and we have funding to do that. And our target audience is families with young children, because that's who is wasting the most amount of food. And one of the main reasons is because the parents really do have good intentions, and they buy these healthy foods, and the healthy foods tend to be fresh fruits and vegetables, and life gets busy and you don't have time to cut it up, or you go and eat out more often and things like that. So really kind of trying to change the behaviors at the family level to look at food as, not being something you should waste. So that's something that we have started doing already, and we can plan to continue to ramp it up, not only with an advertising campaign, but actual toolkits to change behaviors and working with small groups. So it's, we really want to, I mean, I was very influenced by my grandfather, who grew up during the Depression, and I have always, seen, but we've lost generations of people teaching people that, so we want to bring that back in.
I just want to answer back to this question. You're asking who's doing what now to impact schools. Well, I think this conference and the work that Professor Rowe is doing, and everybody else here, where we're talking about how about putting more money into SNAP, and how about making funds available, that directly impacts the amount of money that a food service director has. Like if they increase the dollar amount that can go back for a reimbursable lunch, and that's the school lunch program, and right now it sits at like right around $3 a plate. And if you consider eating a plate of food for $3 plus paying somebody's benefits and their wages and buying equipment and all of those things, it's a really, really tight budget. So if more money was directed towards that program and the school lunch program, you could see more innovation inside of a school district's kitchen that would benefit the kids directly.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of following up on that, there's been money put forward into farm to school programs and things like that. I forget if you have farm to school specific or a broad scale program at Bexley or not, but how do you see that interfacing with waste, either through garden or just kind of respect for the food and things like that?
Bexley does not participate in the farm to school program at a deep level. We're familiar with it. And we do have school gardens, but that's a hard entry point for a lot of schools. Again, it's a grant, it's a big grant, it's a hard grant to go after if you're a little bitty district because of that. But yeah, there is some money there, but when it really directly translates into cents per plate of food that you get reimbursed for every child you feed, that's really where it could have huge impact on every school district that has taking care of hungry kids who are, poverty at the free or reduced rates.
Great.
I'm curious what the most interesting and engaging solution for food waste that you've heard of for schools has been, even if you're not implementing it right now. If you had all the money and support in the world, what would you do tomorrow?
Well, what I do and what I have the luxury of doing is telling kids, don't take it if you're not going to eat it. And we have, our program is for a full plate lunch. And the regulations are you have to take 3 things. I will bore you. It has to be, a fruit or a vegetable plus a grain, a meat alternative, or milk. So you have to have 3 of those things. And we play meal or no meal, like, does this comply and doesn't it comply? So we have a half cup servings of all the fruits and vegetables. We have salad bars. If every school could have a salad bar and make it an option for one of the vegetables, if every school could have, we have hot soup and cold things and fruit and fresh fruit and applesauce, where you can say, if you want those strawberries, if you will eat 4 servings, take 4 servings. Those are your 4 sides today, and go about your day. And that's, if every school could do that, that would be wonderful. Yes, I do.
So how much is it a space and built environment issue? Because if you're in an older school like Bexley, it's, the lunchroom is only so big and there's only so many students. How much of it is a infrastructure, big capital intensive issue versus?
Well, talking about grants, there's a Salad Bar to Schools grant. So that is free, but it doesn't have a big footprint, but it takes commitment from your staff. It takes training of the staff to cut the fruit, the vegetables. I know that sounds maybe fundamental, but some people who are working in kitchens don't know how to effectively use a knife. And so something that might take 10 minutes for me to cut would take that person a half hour, and then time becomes money, becomes, a bigger problem, and you get pushback. And so, literally I had lunch ladies crying, and I'm like, well, you're just going to have to learn how to do this. And so, because I'm mean, but it's because it's best practices. Like if you refuse to learn how to use a knife and you work in a kitchen, then that's probably not the best fit for you. So people come, he's laughing at me. Yeah. So it's really integrating the whole idea of best practices from like your staff to what's best for the kids, to what's best for the budget, which is, and that leads back to what's best for the parents who are paying my salary through their taxes. So it's all one big what's always best.
How many staff do you have?
How big is the staff in a lunchroom?
We serve breakfast and lunch, and we have 1 full-time person and 1 2-hour person that's there during lunch. So a total of 9 hours for 150 kids. 150 lunches. It's 500 children in the school, or 300 children in the school. That one school that I give an example has 320 kids, and there are 9 hours of labor a day in their cafeteria. Yes, salad bars. Okay, this is the Chef Ann Foundation, and it's in conjunction with Whole Foods and some other big names that are working to get these Cambro salad bars into schools. And it's www.saladbars2schools.org. And they don't take electricity. They have an ice pack. The ice packs stack up to be about the size of a case of pizza, like frozen pizza. It's not that big. They give you everything from tongs to pans to the salad bars that wheel in and wheel out with locking things. It's a beautiful program, and if you know any school districts, or if you have kids in schools and they don't look into it. Nationwide. You're welcome.
Do you know about what their funding capacity is? About how many of these they might give out in a particular year?
I know that they have more than they have people asking for them.
Wow.
So, and it is not school poverty level dependent. So, we're a wealthy district. I got the grants. They just want to put these salad bars into schools.
Let the record show awe and shock in the audience. Yeah, you need to have district buy-in, and you've got a new food service director. Yeah, so give him a shot. Let him get comfortable. He'll probably work with you. Other grants is the question.
There are all kinds of grants. If you go to if you're in Ohio, the Ohio Department of Education, Office of Child Nutrition, they have grants listed regularly. Sometimes, and a lot of them are for schools that are in need. And if you didn't know, the poverty level of your school is set by the applications for free and reduced lunches. So the only people in your school who actually know who the free and reduced kids are your lunch service people. Maybe a principal, but we're not even supposed to tell the principals who's free and who's reduced. So, but yeah, it's that number that sets your poverty level. And your poverty level doesn't also only pertain to money that you get for food, for the food service, but it hits your E-rates. It hits a whole lot of money that you get into your school districts. So it's pretty cool.
Another question here.
I'll just add, in response to that question about grants, SWACO offers a community waste reduction grant for Franklin County, and that includes schools and community organizations and government as well. So if you need to buy infrastructure to reduce waste, to add composting, if you want to train your employees on how to reduce waste and how to better prep food to do that, then you could use grant funding for that. And it's $500,000 to $35,000. It's an annual grant. The cycle's closing September 22nd, which is obviously very soon. And so if you did not already have that proposal in the works, probably not going to do it this year, but next year definitely apply. And we'll work with you to craft the proposal. So if anyone's interested, grab my card or chat with me later.
Ronnie, do you have a question?
So this is really interesting in terms of the salad bars. So we actually have a salad bar program throughout the Baltimore City Schools as well. And we did some observations because we were interested in salad bar waste when that was put out there and what would we be seeing. And this was really early on, so I'm curious about how this has changed as it's evolved. But what we found was that the even bigger problem was it's the same as like when you have a buffet and everything that they put out, they would then have to take the rest of the tray and throw it out. So that there was actually a lot of salad bar waste at the, kind of behind the scenes. And I'm wondering if there are strategies to address that, or if USDA is suggesting things to help prevent that. Or if that's an issue that you're seeing even.
If your schools are serving as opposed to offering and saying you must take salad bar, then you will have waste because kids will do what they're obliged to do and put some things on their plate and throw it away. But it's been my experience that the kids who want it take it, and and the kids who don't, they just walk by it. So,
I'm sorry. I meant the actual trays of leftover salad.
Oh, well, because there will be we prep every day, so we hopefully will only make enough lettuce for the day or some, and then into the next day. And on Friday, the chickens eat really well because we don't carry over after Friday. We will throw everything out and start fresh on Monday, and that way we have a 5-day max on, say, carrots or something like that. But we really do try to produce in daily what is needed daily.
So if it goes on the salad bar, it doesn't cross the line of served until it goes onto a plate. Is that okay? That's a good clarification point.
Okay. And it's on an ice pack and the temperature is
temperature controlled. Gotcha. Other questions from the group? I think we're getting, yes, David, one more. Yep, squeeze it in here, yeah.
Again, maybe slightly off topic, but the topic of universal lunches, universal free lunches. I've heard reports recently that I'm not sure which state, what localities were going that direction, but interested to know any thoughts from the group on that and how it could could impact how we manage our food systems.
So you're talking about the CPE, which is, oh gosh, it is universal free pricing, where districts that have poverty levels of 60% or higher are able to apply, and it's district wide. I think New York City just got on the program that's out of my purview. But Columbus Public is a CPE school. Whitehall is. There are a couple others here in the city of Columbus, or in this area. I don't know how they if they are an offerer or if they're serving. And so that really does impact how much trash you have. Like if you are insisting that every child take a set amount of food, and I really don't know what they're doing.
All right. I think we're drawing close to time here, so we're going to reconvene in here at 2:45 for kind of the send off, a brief one. We'll get you out the door before 3. But we'd like to take this time to thank our panelists. A great amount of information, and I learned a lot. So thanks so much.